This is the Between Part 4. Let me do some recapping and then, yeah, we'll get going. So if you all want to follow along with the recap, I'm just going to be on the threat sheet here, which is the one of the tabs on there. So last time you resolved your first threat, which was the St. James's Street ghost. You discovered kind of the nature of the ghost and what would get it to leave, and then you performed a quieting ritual to banish it, and actually had an interesting scene because the mastermind Theodore Brathwaite was there. Your characters don't quite yet understand the scope of Theodore's interests, but we do as players, and we know that ultimately Hargrave House is going to have to face her. But she was there, and she was observing and a little not quite hands-on with ritual, but very there, very present, and making connections to you all. And yeah, and that was more or less the last thing that happened last session. We also introduced a brand new threat, the Coven, where we saw a little cutaway scene of them. We'll talk about more about them in a moment. So that threat is resolved. We have 3 active threats right now, which is the maximum number to where I can't introduce anymore. So now some playbooks introduce threats kind of like the Vessel and the Coven do, but and that can go past the cap of 3, but like my normal just introducing threats during the day phase, that stops as long as there's at least 3. So 3 threats is what you've got to deal with. You've made almost no progress on any of them, so they're all pretty fresh as far as that goes. The threats are currently Sally No Face. Now, if you'll recall, the Daily Telegraph was carrying a story of a washerwoman, Clara Yarborough, who was found dead in her Whitechapel flat, her face very carefully, precisely, surgically removed. It was the third of 3 such victims within the last couple of months. The other victims were an Edward Clive, or actually within this last month, Edward Clive and Dolly Merriweather, also residents of Whitechapel. You don't have too much to go on yet here, except just the locations of where the victims were found, and the fact that the popular kind of like tabloid thing to call this killer is Sally No Face, which is a sort of like children's rhyme, okay, about a woman whose face was burned up in a fire. And you do have one clue though. Someone, I believe it was Dr. Tagore, went and took a look at Clara's body and found red marks that he thought was blood, but turned out to be rouge. So that was a detail. The other active threat is the Limehouse Lurker. Now, in this one, a proprietor of an opium den in the Limehouse district, Jenny Johnston, basically came to you with a story that no one has yet. The papers nor the cops know about this, which is there have recently been 3 people found dead in Limehouse, their bodies almost entirely exsanguinated. The victims are Soft Jimmy, a prostitute who was found in the opium den, Charla Bell, who was found behind the Limehouse School, and a Chinese sailor, Xiao Donghai, who was found outside a pub called the Dog and Whistle. The reason why no one knows about these killings is because Jenny is keeping the bodies in her basement at the opium den because she does not, she thinks that this will create trouble for the sort of small but thriving Chinese immigrant community of which she's a part. And so she kind of wants to take care of this under the radar. And that's why she's come to Hargrave House, because she's heard you know of such things. And indeed, it's a vampire. There was a detail that indicated that the vampire is in the body of a child. That detail was, I think they found like wounds on like the calves and ankles of the victims, right? And so, but that doesn't mean that the vampire is actually young. And so as a threshold question, you have to figure out, is the vampire actually young or is it old? And because that has an effect on how you go about taking care of it. So that's kind of the question you're dealing with there. But we didn't talk about the questions on the Sally No Face, but basically all those questions are just ways of stopping the killer. You can either do it by infiltrating their lair, by answering where is the killer hiding. You can do it by luring them to you, by answering how is the killer choosing their victims, or you can take a different approach whereby you empathize with the killer in some way and bring them in peacefully. And you do that by answering the question, what's the true identity of the killer and what drove them to this madness? So you have different approaches. The more dangerous approaches are the ones that are easier to answer. So the infiltrating their lair is more dangerous than the other two, but it's also the easiest one to solve as far as the mystery goes. So you have some choices there. The third threat is the coven, which we just introduced last time. So the coven is a special threat that is attached to the vessel playbook. And Fraser chose to introduce it into the game. So this is all on Fraser. We saw a cutaway of the coven at a seance at some high society party. Their faces were draped with heavy black veils, and they were there to perform like seances, right? And that's all we saw of them. Now, the actual formal introduction of the coven will take place right now, and that is this. The coven has arrived in London. They are here in the guise of a group of fortune tellers and mediums calling itself the Fellowship of Dreamers. But you know the truth, and especially you, Mr. Turner, you know the truth, which is that they are very evil, very powerful, and very dangerous. Mr. Turner, you know that the only reason the coven would be in London is if they were close to finishing their grand ritual. What will this grand ritual do when complete, and why must Hargrave House stop it? Think on that for a moment. Now, you all don't know where the coven is, but you know where they've been, which is the homes of several prominent members of society where they were guests before performing seances and tarot card readings at the homeowners' respective fates. Those addresses are 14 Brompton Road, 6 Boscobel Place, and the Rutland Gardens Estate. I've noted all that on the threat. Mr. Turner, any thoughts on the ritual?
Yeah, I think they're going to target the people who are the descendants of people who burned witches in the past, and it will slay them or enslave them or something like that.
That's pretty good, because of course England has a very, very dark history of that, right? So these would be people whose ancestors did this, right? Like, a couple hundred years ago. That's interesting. Okay, I like that. And so basically it will all those people burn up themselves, or how will they be?
Yeah, maybe. I like the idea of striking them at their accumulated wealth somehow. Like maybe they'll be left alive, but all their possessions will burn or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I like it. Why does Hargrave House have to stop this?
I wonder if...
I mean, just sounds like this just sounds like witch reparations to me. I mean,
but I wonder if it would be at a player level interesting if Hargrave House is a part of that accumulated wealth.
Okay, so Hargrave House is okay. That's pretty good. So we're establishing that Hargrave House was founded by the descendant of a witch hunter. Okay, interesting. And so, yeah, if they complete the ritual, not only will like other people in the city be destroyed, maybe physically, definitely materially, Hargrave House would also be destroyed. So that's pretty great. I like that.
The economy, Jason. We have to think of the economy.
Destabilize everything. Good. No, that's great. I love it. Okay, awesome. So you do have some leads there as well. The 3 addresses that they were last seen at. The question for the coven is this: when and where will the final step of the grand ritual take place? The complexity is 6. So yeah, that is that. And the resolution, the opportunity unlocked is resolve the threat by stopping the ritual and or destroying the coven. So we are in the day phase. We have introduced, or basically recapped the threats, I should say. Was there anything else we should say before we continue? Maybe like conditions. What conditions does everyone have right now?
Looks like Willoughby still has a lingering odor of pungent onions.
Yeah, you may
probably
want to take care
doubled
of that.
down from a terrible dinner, and hungover.
Oh, nice. Okay, I didn't realize that was a. Oh, yeah, there it is. What about Mr. Chnadios? What are your conditions right now?
He's feeling a little exposed after potentially revealing more of himself to Ives than he intended, and on edge.
Yeah, that was that great scene where we learned that the ghost was a worshiper of Mr. Gennadios back in the day. And you have 3 conditions, Mr. Ives. What are Mr. Turner? What are they?
Drawn to death, fatal curiosity, and most beloved.
And most beloved isn't going anywhere. So, okay, great. Fantastic. Anything else that I forgot that you, or just something you want to remind us of before we get going?
I had another advance and I took Ritual Chamber.
So we have a ritual chamber in Hargrave House now. Awesome. Anything else? Okie doke. In that case, let us proceed. So, yeah. I want to account for Willoughby's absence a little bit. It's only been I think we decided it was about maybe 3 or 4 days in total. I think you would have been, basically, I'll give you a couple of choices here, Willoughby. You can get an experience point by basically narrating a short scene that answers one of your dawn questions, or you can get 2 clues for the threat of your choice. Your call.
I like the fact that Willoughby, this is probably the first time that they've ever been away from Alexander Gennadios' side. This was the first time that they actually kind of took off, maybe with limited knowledge. Maybe I just wrote a note and it was a little bit more mysterious than previously. I think that Willoughby would have been very fascinated by Sally No Face. I think that in trying to discover where the killer might be hiding, I may have taken off all of my gender bending Victorian garb, stripped all my black clothes away, packed a bag, and then spent a day holed up in various lower slums of London trying to figure out where this killer could be.
I love that. It's great. You will have uncovered 2 clues during that, and I will tell you what they are now. And I'll type them into the sheet, but I'll just tell you right now. A name kept coming up. Victoria Callis. Not much context, just a name that's popped up a lot, as far as the context was usually just a sort of someone being missing. That was kind of the main context. But for clue purposes, we're just going to say that it's a name that comes up a lot, Victoria Callis, in relationship to this investigation.
Mm-hmm. Did that name come up? I'm not necessarily asking everybody I meet, hey, have you heard of Sally No Face?
No. It's just inadvertent. Yeah, just kind of yeah. And another clue that you got. Oh, rumors of someone, I'll name him in a moment, in very well-to-do social circles going on and on about having discovered the Fountain of Youth. This is a Dame Margaret Teasdale. I shall type that here. All right, so you've got some good amount of clues now going on towards Sally No Face. Let's just go ahead and keep going with this day phase. So, day phase, of course, relaxed. I sort of follow your lead as players, and this is a great chance to try to clear conditions if you want to do that. You can do more casual investigations as well. That's also a good thing to do in the day phase. If you just want to angle towards one of your dawn questions and narrate a scene that does that, you can do that as well. I also want to remind you all that, we had a very, very, I would say like an intense, fast-paced session last time. There's a lot going on last time, and it was happening really quickly. I think, as I said last time during Stars and Wishes, I want to sort of like reset and go back to like a more like kind of casual pace here. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. But I'll go around the table and find out what everyone's interested in doing. Mr. Gennadios.
I might like to get rid of that on edge condition. I think feeling exposed is probably here to stay for a bit.
Fair enough. So do you want to frame up a scene with one of the other characters to do vulnerable move?
Sure. I think maybe Willoughby and Alexander should catch up.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll come to that in a moment. Mr. Turner, what are you interested in doing?
I too need to clear some stuff. And remind me, so I need to do my vice to get rid of.
You have to be in a scene with one other character where at least one of you is doing your vice. You don't both have to be. It doesn't have to be your vice. Just someone has to be doing their vice.
Okay. So I have another question that I think is maybe interesting. So my vice is sex with dark entities.
A challenging one for vulnerable move purposes.
Yeah, and moving off my rites of salt and smoke, I use perversions of Christian rituals. And so what I was thinking was that perhaps, like, sometimes I probably do have like traditional sex with dark entities, but also sex might be construed as like the proliferation of dark entities into other people. And so I was thinking maybe I go to church and I sermonize
it's more like a
people.
Metaphor. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and
like
that would sort of infect other people the way that I was infected in my backstory.
Yeah. The whole like possession as a metaphor for like sex is like very, very pronounced in the Vessel playbook, right? Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. I think it's a great way of doing it. So you're gonna get one of the characters to go with you while you are doing this, right?
Yeah, I just invite everybody to church. You're cordially invited to my guest sermonizing.
Willoughby, what would you like to do for the day phase?
I believe that both parties can clear a condition.
Yes, as
That
long as you're in
vulnerable
a
move?
scene, yeah, you both get to clear a condition. Yeah.
And then as a factotum, I'm only able to request a vulnerable move with
Alexander.
my employer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no Turkish baths for me. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more of an investigation. Like you said, it was a fast-paced. I feel like we've got lots of open threads. I think we'll discover some clues, but I maybe want to do the vulnerable moves first. Something might come up.
Yeah, we'll do that scene first. What are you thinking about after that, though? Like, you're gonna go continue with Sally, do the Limehouse Lurker, the coven, maybe even?
I think that I may invite Alexander to come along with me to talk to Miss Margaret.
Okay.
As a highfalutin sort of one to another, that might produce something interesting.
Mr. Gennadios has shown a particular deft hand with like wealthy matronly women. So
I know this all too well.
indeed. Why don't we have that scene? But why don't we have the vulnerable move scene with Mr. Gennadios and Willoughby? So whose vice is it going to be, Mr. Gennadios?
I recently acquired this cognac, and not only was it first aged in oak barrels, but then spent 2.5 years in a chestnut wood. It's delightful.
That sounds like a good way to spend a couple hours in the afternoon.
So frame up the scene then, Drew. Like, what's happening? What does this look like?
I imagine in perhaps the music room of Hargrave House, Alexander is sitting, probably just maybe catching up on the illustrated police news, and gently running a small needle over the window, which produces a strange little tune that he might remember played live. Who knows? And Willoughby finally emerges from their quarters, perhaps, and Alexander will look up and say, good of you to join us.
Forgive my walkabout, sir. I was anxious to find out more information, and I needed some time away.
Understandable. We all need time to ourselves every now and again.
Just now and again, just occasionally, I promise.
Of course, in truth, I was more than a little unsettled without your company.
I have come to depend on you as well. It is good that we share such common ideals.
I agree.
And I will pour another snifter, and I'll be serving, but I imagine that we sit as equals when we're alone. There's less of the servant structure, but that's, again, kind of up to my employer.
That works.
Mm-hmm.
Which conditions are we thinking about clearing? You both get to clear one if you wish. So,
well, I imagine this hair of the dog would cure my hangover. I'm more interested in perhaps taking a long shower or bath after this, where I would be able to finally, after days, stop smelling of onions.
If you want to say that you, immediately after this conversation, you go to wash up, I think that would be great. I think it would even, just to make it fit in the scene, if Mr. Gennadios made some sort of commentary on your scent, your fragrance, that might be good.
Honestly, I had stopped. Oh, sorry. Honestly, I had stopped noticing. Thank you.
Yeah, what would you say, Mr. Gennadios?
Go ahead.
Well, I always encourage experimentation in one's perfumery. This is not the most flattering scent for you, Willoughby.
No, truth be told, it was fairly common in the streets, and I had stopped noticing. I will right myself.
Very good.
Very good. What about you, Mr. Gennadios? Which condition are you going to clear?
I think the cognac will definitely help him feel a little less on edge.
And because it was your vice, Willoughby, you get a little bonus, which is, I have to remind myself, even though I wrote the game, which is you can stumble on a clue. You get to tell me what the clue is, or you can invite Mr. Gennadios to ask you about your past. You must answer truthfully, but not necessarily completely.
I think that I will have had one of those second cognac eureka moments in which I recall something from my time away that makes perfect sense, but I don't know what that is just yet. So I will ponder it for a moment.
Yeah, just first think of which threat is it going to apply to, and just
Mhm.
the main thing about the clue is it can be anything, but it just can't definitively answer a question. So like it can't be
Oh,
like
so
the answer.
I know who Sally No Face is.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Awesome. That's a great scene. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do you want to rope one of these companions into a little bit of afternoon mass here? What's going on?
So does it need to be just one person?
It has to be just one person. Yep.
Oh, okay. Perhaps Willoughby then? They've got 2 conditions. And I kind of like that too, because probably what Willoughby would learn about me following the conversation that they had between themselves about Turner before would be relayed to Alexander afterwards anyway.
Yeah. Well, so frame up the scene then. What does this look like? Where is this taking place?
So I think I have a guest spot at a very large cathedral in London. And I think the reason why I have a guest spot is because I can do the sermon in the old way, which is Latin and obscured with a screen. And I probably weave in and out of Latin and English so that at least the guest gets something out of it. But I think I twist like the normal stories of, say, like the fallen angels, like Lucifer and stuff. I think I make him do more monstrous things, yet the requirement of the faith of that is even more forgiveness. Like the more monstrous something is, the more forgiveness it is, rather than like, rise up against evil. It's just, forgive evil and it's fine. That kind of thing.
That's really good. I'm curious, Willoughby, since you're there with the other parishioners, how are they receiving this kind of, I mean, frankly, kind of like heretical sermon? Oh, you're muted, Sarah.
If it's something that this is a fairly regular occurrence, I wonder if it hasn't taken on a more of a like show quality and less worship quality. Not that Mr. Turner is any kind of a sideshow, but maybe word's gotten about that this man says some of the most absurd that, like, so they maybe are taking it a little less seriously and leaving themselves vulnerable to the dark forces at work.
No, I love it. That's good. Like they're lured by just rumors essentially, and then
The unique experience.
You're
This isn't anything you're going to see anywhere else. A little bit of popcorn, a little bit of wax museum.
Meanwhile, Mr. Turner. So, Mr. Turner, how do you, when you're there doing this, like this sort of blasphemous sermon, how do you know that? How do you know that the dark powers are working among the group? Like, how do you experience this?
I think what it looks like is the light that goes through the panes of glass in the cathedral get heightened and turned up. Like it gets even more brighter, but it's not unsettling because it's just brightness. Everybody likes brightness. If it was darkness, people would be like, what's going on here? But they're like, oh, it's just a really bright day.
I mean, Lucifer is called Morning Star, right? So this, yeah.
Exactly.
Good. I love it. Well, now I'm curious about the effect, since this is not like a scene between the two of you talking, but you're both in the scene. It's still the vulnerable move. I guess the question I have is, Mr. Turner, I think it's obvious how you're being vulnerable, but Willoughby, how are you vulnerable right now in this moment?
About 2/3 of the way through, after watching all of the people react and those onlookers that seem to know the pattern of his sermon, and maybe a few people sitting closer to the front, and I'm looking at them and they seem so earnestly listening to this blasphemous nonsense. And then I kind of think about what my own struggles have been fitting in this own society and how I can't seem to find a place, and I might cry quietly to myself.
Nice. Well, you both get to clear a condition if you wish. And
Ooh, angry hangover crying, I guess.
yes, that would clear you completely then, right, Willoughby? You don't have any conditions. What about you, Mr. Turner? Which one are you going to clear?
Fatal curiosity, I think. I still like to be drawn to death.
Yeah, that's good. No, we've gotten a lot of story out of that one, so that's great. It's your vice, so you can find a clue, or you can invite Willoughby to ask you a question about the past.
What are the threats again?
Game, mechanically speaking, would I be asking a mask of the past question?
No, you would just be asking any
Just asking a
question.
question.
Generally speaking, you all are not, as characters, you don't talk about your pasts, but this is a chance to do that. So.
I see.
Yeah. Let's do that, because we haven't seen that before.
I think we'll handle that in a separate scene. We'll come back, like maybe post sermon, and then do that. In the meantime, Mr. Gennadios, what would you like to do next?
When Willoughby is available again, perhaps maybe this is more for Ives as well, but I feel like he would be well suited to go visit some of the places the coven has been.
I think I mean, maybe if you want to go visit one of those places now while Turner and Willoughby are out at church, it might be a thing to do.
Yeah, sure.
Which of these addresses do you want to go to? You've got 14 Brompton Road, 6 Boscobel Place, and Rutland Gardens.
Well, Rutland Gardens says it's an estate, so
yeah. I mean, they're all kind of like mansions, but yeah.
That seems the fanciest.
Indeed. So you can take a hansom cab to Rutland Gardens. It's almost like a little cul-de-sac kind of road where there is a large, like, kind of multi-winged sort of mansion on it, and there is a doorman standing outside. What do you do?
Is this doorman a side character?
Can be, yeah, because in this they are, because in this incursion, all generic servants are side characters. So yeah.
Actually, I think I'll save that for someone who actually lives in the house. Also, I love that you called it an incursion.
Did I call it an incursion? I did. Yeah, I know. The threat. Yeah. Okay. Well, so what do you do?
He'll get out of his cab and approach very casually and say, "Good evening, the madam or master of the house." Oh, sorry, day. Good day, master of the house or the lady. Would they be available?
Mrs. Tabitha Crawley is currently taking tea. Can I ask who's calling?
My name is Alexander Gennadios. I'm here to speak about guests you have had recently, the Fellowship of Dreamers.
And he's sort of like, there's a distinct like irritation in his face. Like he gets a little flustered. His powdered wig, because they wear like sort of like powdered wig, kind of waistcoat, breeches, get ups, kind of shifts a little funny, and he kind of moves it back. He says, I shall see if Mrs. Crawley will see you. Please just wait here. And he turns and goes inside. You've got a moment while you're waiting outside. What do you do?
I'd like to examine the gardens, see how well kept they are.
Yeah.
If perhaps someone's lying.
Yeah. So there is a small, like a literal garden, because I believe in England that's what they call their they use the word gardens for like their front and backyard as well, right? But this is a literal garden, like in the front of the house, like flower beds and things like that. Take an information move with reason.
Not my best. That's 7.
7. You're going to find a clue. I'll give it to you now. And that clue is you find a tarot card in the flower beds. It's the Tower. Upon touching the tarot card, we smash cut the scene to show a trio of people wearing very heavy black veils in a very dark, unknown place. They are standing inside a circle of candles, and they are muttering words behind their veils and moving their hands with strange incantations. And at that moment, you hear a cry of distress come up from inside the house. We'll come back to that. Let's have the scene with Willoughby and Mr. Turner just leaving the church. And yeah, and work your question in there, Willoughby.
That was electric.
I hope you took something away from it that means something to you.
I was moved, although I'm very curious. How did you come to be so passionate about these dark forces?
You say dark, but they're quite bright, don't you think?
Perhaps they can be, but I don't think either of us believe that they are purely good, or that anything is purely good.
Exactly. At an early age, my mother brought me to church, and I like to think I merely adopted her taste for it.
But not its teachings.
Like all things, I take what speaks to me, discard others.
I know that very well. And I hand him a little flask. It's one I always have on me. And it has a little picture, or embossed stamp of what looks like a cat standing with a rapier and an admiral's hat.
An interesting container.
Just a trifle. It's a laugh. And we
something to break the mood.
Yeah, I think for the rest of the day too, I'm wearing my priest outfits. That's like probably like a Carolinian one, where like it's the old priest garb, that like black with the popped collar, but it's got like the wraparound white scarf that trails down the front.
Nice. I love it. Love it. I'm gonna make a note here that we need a clue yet from the last vulnerable move. Where's that clue coming from, Sarah? Sally No Face, Limehouse Lurker, the coven?
It will be Sally No Face, single-minded.
I'm just gonna put a note there so we remember it.
Thank you.
Because I'll forget. So, I want to cut back to Mr. Janius. Mr. Janius, you hear this like commotion suddenly coming from inside the house. Like at the moment you touch the card, what do you do?
Slipping the card inside my jacket, I will rush into the building. Not run, but move with a deliberate swiftness.
Yeah, the front door's open. You can make your way through the 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 main hall back to the salon, where you hear this like cry and screaming, and there are several servants, including the footman, around a woman who you assume is Miss Crawley, and Mrs. Crawley's mouth has blood pouring from it, and the footman like just turns, and he has like a tray with her tongue laying on it, and he says, it just fell out.
Well,
I don't think Mrs. Crawley can have any visitors today. And he pushes you out.
right. Okay.
And do I want to give you a condition here? No, I don't think so. I think just the moment is enough here. Where do you I assume you leave, or do you hang around?
Wishing that Dr. Tagore were available, I think he would leave for now.
Very well, very well. Why don't we put everybody back at Hargrave House then, so that if we want to have other scenes, we can keep this day phase going a little bit. Sounds like we do want to do a visit to Margaret Teasdale with Alexander and Willoughby. Mr. Turner, anything else you'd like to do?
I don't think so. Not that comes to mind.
You just want to head to the Mrs. Teasdale's then, or Dame Teasdale's then?
Sure.
Dame Margaret Teasdale. Described in the threat as a solid foundation for reasons that'll become apparent later on, probably. You are, I think we're going to just cut straight to being invited in. She is a very wealthy woman. She lives in just somewhere in Knightsbridge, some fancy house. And I think you all are there in her sitting room, three of you. And she has what I would describe as very stiff facial features, a very waxen complexion, and she's practically dripping with finery and jewels. It almost weighs her down. Like there's so much. And she says, of course, I have a very difficult time saying no to such a handsome caller. What can I do for you, Mr. Gennadios, you and your friend? Makes no reference to you, Willoughby, whatsoever.
I am standing just off center and behind.
I think Alexander is, well, rattled from what happened earlier. He's also kind of amused by someone who claims to have found the Fountain of Youth. And he'll smile gently, and my friend tells me you speak highly of a method of preservation of the self.
I thought that might be what it is. If I was as handsome as you, Mr. Gennadios, I would do whatever I could to maintain that as well. You see, I reject out of hand, and in the strongest possible terms, that we are all fated to shrivel up like prunes. Let others be stately or grow old with dignity. I seek the eternal. But yes, I have been in contact with a doctor who does the most fascinating, cutting edge, pun intended, surgeries in order to keep you right and tight.
So the method is medical then.
Yes, yes. None of this is a clue yet. Great context, but no clue. Do you want to push for an information move?
Yes.
Let me check on Mr. Turner too. Sounds like he has something to say, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could do the classic excuse myself to the powder room and snoop.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Willoughby, do you want to go snoop as well? Or are you good just hanging out here?
No, I'm 100% following Mr. Turner. Pardon me.
Dame Teasdale says, "Oh, don't you like it when you're quite suddenly left alone in a room with a strange person?"
My friends know when things are best handled privately.
And then she says something that maybe gets at you a little bit, Mr. Gennadios. And this is because Mr. Turner has most beloved. She says, "Your friend, Mr. Turner, is he taken by chance?"
His smile will grow a little brittle and he'll say, "In more ways than you can imagine, miss."
Indeed. Mr. Turner, what do you do? Where do you go?
I think I definitely initially at least make it seem like I am going to the powder room, but then I just keep walking. And I'm looking for places most obscured, I suppose.
Yeah, just such a
Like
general
if,
sort of scanning around then.
yeah, or if like there's say a hallway with 3 doors and one of them is closed, I go in the closed door.
Okay, let's just do like just a sort of generic information move with reason, kind of see where we go. Go ahead and roll it first, and I'm going to cut over to Willoughby.
Ooh, 10.
Nice. You get your clue. You can always bump it up to a 12 if you want. A mastermind clue.
What is it? Oh, so that reveals something about the mastermind?
It reveals the mastermind's involvement.
Okay, let's do that.
But you have to mark the Janus mask to do that. So Fraser's such an easy get on pushing the Janus mask. Anyway, we'll come back to your clue in a moment. Willoughby, what are you doing?
I think I would stop and pause at the powder room door and watch him continue down the hallway and spend a good 15-30 seconds listening to the rest of the household to see if I hear people moving about upstairs, if how many people might be downstairs in the kitchen, just kind of getting a layout of where everybody is or how many people there are in the house.
Yeah, take an information move with reason.
Is that 2?
Yeah, roll 2 to 6, add them up, and then add your reason.
8 plus 9 total.
And you'll get your clue, but there will be a complication or cost to it. We'll come back to that in a moment as well. I want to cut over to Mr. Gennadios just one more last time, and then we'll kind of get the clues wrapped up. So Mr. Gennadios, they're gone for a moment. She's kind of going on and on about Mr. Turner. This is maybe something you're not accustomed to as a general matter.
His expression will harden.
How is it making you feel?
He's not used to being ranked second best when it comes to the attention of other people, and I think he feels jealous.
I'm going to give you a condition, just a hint of jealousy.
Well, if we're quite finished listing the merits of Mr. Turner's good looks, I wonder if you have any information you might share with me about the source for these medical treatments.
Make an information move with presence. Oh, say that again.
12.
12. Oh, another mastermind clue. That's good. I got a lot of clues to sort out. So let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and reveal them all. I owe you all some clues, and we're going to go through them now. Willoughby, you hung back a little bit, and perhaps via instinct or otherwise, you notice that there's a broom closet, like a little under the stairs broom closet. And you notice a smell coming from it, but not the smell of dust or mildew or anything like that. In fact, if you pop the door open, it's a very, very intense smell of expensive perfume, like really expensive perfume, very intense, somehow, for some reason, coming from this broom closet. That's your clue.
Like breaking any bottle of perfume, it lingers for
Yeah.
years later. Mm-hmm.
And while you're doing this, I think there's a window that looks out the back, and you see someone, a boy, by the looks of them, it's a little hard to tell, peering into the window into the house. And when he sees it, you see him, he like ducks below the parapet. Miss Turner, I think you find yourself in an office drawn to the closed door, right? And you're in this office. The thing you find that's your clue is a stack of love letters, unsigned, increasingly florid, addressed to someone named Gregory. While you're in there, there is a card with a note to Dame Teasdale that says that a T. Brathwaite called on you while you were out. I shall note that in the mastermind clues section.
So a mechanics question on this clue, as we're adding mastermind clues, is it also a clue? Is the
No.
the love letters are the mastermind clue?
The love letters is the clue. This is just something else that Mr. Turner found in the office. The mastermind clues cannot be used to resolve or just to answer questions. They are just they're like a timekeeping device for me as the keeper. As they pile up, different things happen in the story. And now, having said that, there is one playbook, The Explorer, that gets to use the mastermind clues to answer questions, but you all don't get the advantage of that. So, but I'm gonna make a note here. The important thing here is it's just evidence that Theodore Brathwaite has a connection to Dame Teasdale in some way, right? Mr. Gennadios, let's have that scene with Dame Teasdale. So you asked, what did you ask her? What was the approach here?
For information on the source of this medical miracle.
She says, well, I mean, certainly everyone wants to know how I've been able to maintain my timeless visage. And I'm not totally opposed to telling you where you can find this surgeon of great renown, Mr. Gennadios. But the fact is, I don't know where they're at. I don't know where they can be found. I don't even know quite how they found me. But I do know that they gave me this. And she pulls out a beautiful cream-colored card embossed with gold lettering. And it's an invitation to a fabulous new exhibit, a powerful new artistic work, an installation. But there's no address and there's no date. She says, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Maybe you can make some sense of it.
Perhaps I can. I have many friends throughout the city, especially in the art world.
Well, if you find out where I'm supposed to be and when, do let me know.
Do you mind if I hold on to this? I'll have it sent back when I've found more information.
Of course, of course. Now, where did that young Mr. Turner get off to? And I do want to cut back to Willoughby, though. Willoughby, what do you do when you see this boy looking in the window?
Is this a situation where I see a door next to that window? Is there an easy
Yeah, you
exit
could
out
you
the-
could walk out
like,
there. Yeah,
see it?
yeah. It's to like the back garden area.
I deftly and very gently close the broom closet door and then briskly walk in, not necessarily a stern look on my face, but more of a playful look of like, all right, like you would a new puppy. You just kind of like open up the door and see if he's still there.
He is. This boy,
Ha-ha.
he is 12, 13 years old. He is dressed in what I would describe as a very fashion-forward blazer. Short trousers, a cricket cap, shiny leather shoes, wool socks held up with garters. Is very fashionable 12-year-old in very daring colors, I would say. Probably much more daring than anything anybody at Hargrave House would wear, with the exception of maybe Mr. Genadio's. I'd say it's the colors are sort of like it's like a pinstripe turquoise with purple and a yellow cap. And he says, congratulations. You have managed to find me when I did not wish to be found.
Forgive me, young sir. Perhaps it would be easier to hide in less aggressive colors.
Well, there are certain sacrifices one must make to be sartorially daring, don't you think?
Willoughby adjusts the veil that's underneath the hat and kind of at a dramatic angle. I agree wholeheartedly. Now, why were you spying?
And he kind of smiles and says, I was just doing a bit of customer care for my employer.
Well, I too am a dedicated employee, and in fact, my employer is just inside. I should see to him. What was your name?
That's not important at all.
Mm.
And he spins on his heel and walks out the back, squeezes through a gap in the iron fence.
Willoughby just does a wave and heads back inside.
Mr. Turner, where do you go after you're done grabbing letters and note cards?
I probably return since it's been a bit.
Dame Teasdale says, Mr. Turner, I wonder what you think of my home. Isn't it beautiful?
The moldings are perfection.
Mr. Turner always has something to say about the moldings. He says, yes, they're original. The fashion is to tear them out, of course, in these old homes, but I like for a house to have its old bones, you know?
Well, everything
Solid
old
foundation.
Everything old comes back into fashion again. You'll be on top of it in no time.
This feels like the conversation feels like you're talking about her. She says, well, this has been a very exhilarating afternoon. Mr. Gennadios, if you do find out what that invitation card is referencing, I would love to hear it.
Of course. It's just a small tinge of impatience in that.
Do you go back as well, Willoughby? Are you there with them? Yeah. Well, so what do you all do now? I mean, she's kind of calling an end to this this little visit.
I think I'm due a mastermind clue as well. I got the 12.
Oh, you are. Indeed, you are. Give me a moment. I had considered it. I didn't give it to you yet. You are getting ready to leave when the hallway butting up against that room is suddenly overtaken by servants cleaning and waxing the floor. And Dame Teasdale says, oh, let's go around. You don't mind going out the back garden, is that okay?
Not at all.
Good. I know it's very, very informal. I apologize, but well, I don't want you getting involved in all that and slipping and falling or who knows what else. Is that okay? She says to Willoughby. She can tell that Willoughby's a little like, you know.
I bob my head.
She says, come with me. And she takes you like through basically like connecting rooms. And one of the rooms you get to is completely covered in sapphire blue. All the upholstery and the furniture, the wallpaper, the carpet, it's this like vibrant sapphire blue color. It's almost jarring. It's so like such a strong color. And she says, isn't this a very chic look, don't you think? Striking, I thought.
Very bold.
A dear friend of mine suggested the color. And then she continues on. That's the mastermind clue. And then you are led out of the back way and sent on your way.
Going forward, whenever Willoughby is moving through the city, I will be looking for a yellow cap.
Indeed. So we have hansom cabs, which are, the tricky thing about hansom cabs is they're actually only like 2 passengers, but fit a third one in. Willoughby can hang off the back, right?
I would easily walk. There's no reason for me to share a car.
I do think we're going to move into the dusk phase, though. I feel like we've had a good day phase. Let's move into the dusk phase. So let's take a look at the, give me a moment to pull up my dusk phase prompts. I always forget to have that handy. Just 1 minute. I will have that ready to go. So of course, in the dusk phase, we have a few things to accomplish here. The first is to resolve any playbook moves or custom moves that are resolved during the dusk phase. Do we have any dusk phase moves at this point? If that's a no, then we shall continue on to the next part, which is I pose a paint the scene question about Hargrave House, because one of our goals in this phase is to see Hargrave House a little bit, right? So let's take a look at that. We did the music room, we did the trophy room, we did the dining room, where Willoughby is with us in spirit. Let's do the conservatory. And here it's like a conservatory means like a back sunroom, right? Covered in glass, looking out to the back garden. A former hunter in residence turned out to be the legendary killer known as Roger the Reaver. This was his favorite room in Hargrave House. Looking around, how do you know that?
I am imagining that we still at Hargrave House care for his exotic pet tortoise that roams this room. And we're all like, there might be like a chip on the shell where there was a final confrontation, but we still have his tortoise that lingers.
Love it.
I think Roger, while pursuing his extracurriculars, his work involved a lot of knots and binding, and there are still framed examples of particularly tricky and strange knots on the walls.
Former sailor, perhaps.
Lots of macrame around the plants.
That's what I thought of, was a macrame plant holder. My mother had one of those growing up. Mr. Turner?
My idea was that he did like actual weaving or crochet or something, but the knots sort of already have hit on that. Oh, maybe he was a particularly tall person, and so one of the seats is like, I don't know what you would call it, but when you sit in it, even as an adult, it's hard for even your legs to touch the ground.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the next thing to do is everybody says what their hunter will be doing tonight, or what you want to do. Everyone gets to speak once, and then everyone gets to make one revision after everyone has spoken. Let's just go with Mr. Genadios first.
I think he's going to pay a visit to where his statue is, in the hopes that maybe someone there will know something about the art exhibit.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. It's good. Mr. Turner?
I think I'll be beaconing.
Walking the streets of London at night. Good. Yeah. Willoughby?
Sorry, I'm caught off by the idea of that you're just a spiritual flashlight pointed at the sky, wandering around Victorian
That's
London.
kind of what it is.
I owe a clue for Sally No Face, and I think
yes,
that
let's have that.
my eureka moment while we were drinking and recuperating was that I recalled that as I was pretending to be kind of destitute and all the rest of that, that people kept telling me, well, if you need a little bit of extra money, you could always go see the butcher. And so I might do or investigate, see if I can't find a place where I could earn a little coin on the side, and see if I can't track down that butcher.
Interesting. Is this the clue as well?
That is the clue, is that everybody kept telling me, well, if you need a little bit of extra money, go see the butcher. Have you seen the butcher? He can, or I don't know if there was gendered. I think just the butcher.
So, and you're thinking this might be Sally, basically. Is that the idea?
Might be Sally, might be a doctor's assistant, might be
Okay,
just
good.
a body grabber for,
Yeah, no, that's great.
in the same way that our doctor might have some shady characters occasionally.
I love it. Any other revisions, or is everybody set?
Do I need to narrate the flashback now, or is that a different phase?
Yep, that's the next part of the little thing here, which is optional. Resolve any Janus mask prompts that remain unresolved. So.
Oh, sure. Okay,
What
I'll
do we
do
have?
that. I'll mark the second past. Narrate a flashback in your childhood that shows the first time you encountered a dark entity. And I think we get a flashback to on the mantle, there's a picture of Ives's mother, who is wearing nunnery garb. She's left the family. And so his father is bringing him up, and he's a pastor. And we get a shot of them like at a dining room table, and the father's quoting scripture, and Ives corrects the father, and the father flies into a rage and takes him to his room where there's like a few candles being lit, and forces him to pray for forgiveness. And the father closes the door on him, and as Ives prays, the candle goes from like a normal illumination to white light. And as he turns to look at the pane glass window in this room, there's some sort of like angel on the pane glass, and it actually starts like moving and animated, like the face turns towards Ives.
Love it. Any revisions before we are we good to go? Everybody locked in for tonight? I will introduce the unseen at this point. The unseen. Let's do and this is the title of a particular guidebook that one can find if you know where to look, called Madame Morvaine's Boy Tour, Powdered Princelings and Delightful Demigods, all agape for your amusement. Madame Morvaine's famous guidebook, or infamous guidebook, I suppose, is a walking tour of all the best male prostitutes in London. Ship Captain Jackson Flint Broadmoor has just come in for a 3-day port of call, the well-worn guidebook clutched beneath his arm. Hargrave House. You're all getting ready to go out to do your night work. But before you can leave, there is a ring at the front door. You have a caller.
I go and answer the door.
Standing at the door is Jenny Johnston, the owner of the Opium Den in Limehouse. She is, she's wearing like a kind of a nice like kind of like purple gown, and she has like a traveling cloak over her. And she says, "Are your employers here?"
They are, but we may be indisposed.
She
How
just
fast
walks in.
Yeah, does she?
And she sees the two of you as well. And she says, "There's been another death."
Not uncommon in London. Who are you?
"I'm Jenny Johnston. Remember, I was here. I told you about the exsanguinated bodies in Limehouse."
Of course, of course.
"Well, now that explains why you haven't done anything to look into this matter like you said you would. You
There
can't
are
even
many
remember
men.
my name."
My apologies. Things have been rather hectic as of late.
"Well, there's been another body, another prostitute in the Opium Den. Blood completely drained. I'm doing everything I can to keep a lid on this. I now have 4 bodies in my basement. I need you all to look into this matter. I was told that you were the people to seek."
And
This is
you
at all of
heard
you.
correctly.
We will redouble our efforts. The Vitruvian man here will
Where is Dr.
definitely
Tagore?
remember.
Dr. Tagore said he had expressed an interest in this particular case. Where has he gone off to?
No doubt
Adam?
on the case right now.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, good. That's something at least. And at this point, you all hear a loud commotion coming from the back of Hargrave House, near the rear entrance by the kitchens. A slamming, a breaking, a crashing. And we cut away to go back to, well, we should have done Madame Morvaine's first. I did this out of order, but that's okay. Madame Morvaine's famous guidebook. Now, this is for everyone. Yeah, I think we're going to do these like, everyone's going to do these together. These are going to be all paint the scene prompts, basically. The first stop in Madame Morvaine's tour is Prince Louis, powdered, soft, covered in yards of satin and lace. He invites Captain Broadmoor into his boudoir. What distinctly feminine touches do we see in Prince Louis's room?
I think there would definitely be the vanity with many bottles of perfumes and powders and that. And perhaps as he's ushered in and trying to settle himself, a gesture might knock one of those bottles to the ground, covering it in broken glass and a deep permeating scent.
And I like the crash, like the crash at the back of Hargrave House, the crash down in Prince Louis's boudoir. Drew, Fraser, anything to add here? Distinctly feminine touches?
I think he's adapted a few dresses of the same make into a canopy on the bed.
There is a shelf running along one wall with really finely crafted china figures like Royal Dalton, all in beautiful dresses and very finely made.
Indeed. There's a crash, Willoughby, coming from the kitchens. What do you do?
I take off running in an undignified manner.
Jenny Johnston says, my goodness, what was that? What do the two of you do?
I think I would attempt to usher her out, saying that we have another matter to take care of, but we will get to yours quite quickly.
So you're ushering Jenny out. What are you doing, Mr. Gennadios?
I think he'll stand kind of passively by until Jenny leaves line of sight, and then he'll go see what Willoughby may have found.
Willoughby, when you get to the kitchen, you see that boy dressed in the dapper clothing. He's there in the kitchen, and he has two gentlemen with him, two big, tough-looking gentlemen with clubs, and they have just busted open the back door. What do you do?
Oh, goodness. I might just apply manners to the situation in an attempt to stall and say, oh, young sir, I could not be more surprised to see you. We typically take callers up front. Here, let me call the household. You'll want to speak to my employer. And I'll shout down the hallway, we have more callers, gentlemen.
The boy says, I regret the rather informal manner that I and my associates have been forced to take in order to deliver a message to you, but the message will be delivered nonetheless. Stop looking into the Sally No-Face matter. Mr. Gennadios, you get there. What do you do?
I would like to giveth the boy.
Oh, Good. Very, very good. So the boy may not even be aware of you till right now, right?
Mhm.
Let's read Giveth.
My
Good.
employer.
Indeed. Let's just read that move because it's a move worth reading. At any time, you can declare that a side character is secretly one of your worshippers. Describe how the side character subtly or not so subtly debases themselves before you in the scene, then scar your reflection. How does the boy react?
At first, there's some uncertainty, like could it be here? And then when he realizes that it is indeed me, he will reach for the bats or clubs that the men have, and kind of tug them down and urge the other two to get on their knees as well. And then he'll drop.
Mr. Turner, Willoughby, the scene has taken a strange turn. What are you two doing? Actually, let's just cut it there and go back to Madame Morvain's. The next stop on the tour is Anthony the Adonis, whose body is rubbed with golden powder. How do we know Anthony is dying of consumption?
There's a corner of the pillowcase that has been turned over, but you can see speckles of blood on it.
The gold powder is caked into the heavy bags under his eyes and just accentuate the gauntness of his cheeks.
Without going into too much graphic detail, I think that this gentleman might at some point find himself on his knees, and he can notice all of the veins in the pale skin in the corners of his joints that have become blue and almost a purple color.
Indeed. So you're all in the kitchen. The dapper boy and his thugs, they get up, and the thugs look very confused. The boy says, I suppose I should take my leave now. My message still stands. This investigation is not worth your time. And sir, to Alexander, Sally No Face is entirely beneath you. This is not anything you should concern yourself with. And he says, come on, you two. And they're leaving.
Alexander will call after him. Beneath me is where many are. Tell your master I will accept no further broaches into our territory.
And there's no response, but they did. You can hear them stop as they listened, but then they leave. Mr. Turner, what do you do right now?
So I don't know much, like, how much do I know about Alexander? Yeah.
Nada. You all explicitly know nothing because that's the rules of the game. You don't know the true history, right?
Yeah. I think first of all, I would.
How do you feel? That's a good question right now.
I think somewhat odd, right? That the intruders suddenly, genuflected to our compatriot here. So yeah, I think curious, odd.
I shall give you a condition confused for
Yeah.
now. Do you still
I
have
like
space for
the
conditions?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it just filled me up.
Okay. How are you feeling, Willoughby? You've probably seen things like this before.
That's just it. Is that I think that it's much like not knowing your dad's a mafia boss. Like I've seen versions of this, and I know that everybody seems to treat him with a very almost a suspicious amount of venerance. Like he's untouchable. And so I might just turn and look to see if I can catch anything on his face that might give me more indication of what just happened, as opposed to being surprised by any of their actions.
Alexander, what do you do in the scene, I suppose, is the big question here.
While he's speaking to them, or while they are looking, he'll have his chin tilted up and be kind of peering down at them imperiously. But as soon as they're done, he'll kind of give a small, loosen his shoulders, step back, kind of pat his hands together and say, well, we have things to do tonight.
Indeed, indeed.
Willoughby is vexed.
I suppose I'll hang a canopy over the door. It's broken, I guess, right? The glass is broken.
It is broken. Yeah, the door was smashed open.
Yeah.
Hang something there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hang a canopy down and brace it as something. I don't know, with some wood or something.
Sir, Mr. Turner, sir, and I will perhaps go to some of the other household staff and have them relieve him of that
There's no other
duty.
staff. It's
No,
just you.
no, just me. Awesome.
Yeah, it's just you.
Then I will take it from him and do a workable job.
Yeah, in a game with no factotum, the house has no staff. It's just the people who live there. Good. Great. Let's go to Madame Morvain's. We're on the third. The next stop is Gianni, an Italian temple, olive-skinned, breathtaking. How do we know Gianni is having the time of his life?
He has accumulated quite a lot of invitations to All About.
I like the idea that his room is quite untidy, but it's because he has this coat for this moment, and that jacket goes with this, and this thing over here, and he has a glorious wardrobe and no place to put it.
I think he has an open diary on his desk that we see is full of just the most just so much praise about everything that has happened today, and it just goes back.
The chat yesterday was lit. Good. Well, remind me what you were all hoping to do before you were interrupted by events. Mr. Gennadios, you were going where?
Going to the British Institute to pay a visit to the people who guard his statue.
Oh, yes. That's maybe extra interesting considering we just had an encounter with a worshiper. Mr. Turner, what were you doing?
Beaconing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we can do that. And Willoughby?
I was going to explore some of the lower towns, alleys and streets to find the butcher.
Oh, that's right. Good. That sounds dangerous. I love it. Let's do Mr. Turner doing Beacon in the Night, or what's it called? Beacon in the Night. Whatever that movie is called. A Beacon in the Dark. When you walk the streets of London at night, your consciousness spreading across the city like a vast spider web. Roll with sensitivity.
Alrighty. 2, and then I think it's accentuated because I have the ritual chamber maybe.
You have to be in the ritual chamber doing the ritual.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
This is literally the opposite of that.
And 12.
Oh, very good. So you are going to, you will be immediately confronted by a threat or a personified danger related to the threat. You can ask them 2 questions. They will not answer directly, but rather in the form of a clue. And because you got a 10 plus, they will depart as soon as the questions are answered. You are walking about, doing your beacon in the dark in a city where a coven you have a history with is currently at. And they answer. Stepping out of the darkness, we see a trio of people wearing these long, heavy veils. I mean, it like covers like not just their face, like they're like on wide brimmed hats, and they like drape down, practically covering their whole body. They're just like these, almost like Nazgul, right? Like just this black, coverings. And they step out of the darkness, and one of them says, "Hello, brother. It has been too long."
Not long enough.
We'll cut there for the moment. Mr. Gennadios, how do you know you're getting closer to your statue?
I'm used to seeing people stare as I walk past, but I'm not used to them clearly bowing their heads. And as I get close to the British institution, I pass by more and more people who are at the very least aware of my statue.
And once you get to the statue, describe for us now, I think that's part of your move anyway, how is this, because the statue's been scarred, how does the statue reflect the scars of your soul?
It's not necessarily a visual thing from afar, at least, but the veins in the marble that make it up are starting to shrink and leaving everything a little more just blank white. And also, the closer you get to it, the colder it gets.
Interesting. What do you do when you're here?
After walking into the hidden back room, I will excuse myself from kind of making sure everything's okay in that room, and go and find the curator, who, even though it is night, I know he'll be there.
Back to that. And Willoughby, what's your basic approach here? Talking to people, chatting people up, some other way?
I think that that's going to be the crux of it. As a social creature, that's kind of what Willoughby likes to do when he's not serving his employer, their employer. And I'd imagine that Willoughby's taste for fine liquor and knowing what they know about Mr. Gennadios's reputation, I may actually have a network of sommeliers and people in London who purveyors and bring these things in on ships and barrels and things. And I might be trading on his name to get some very, very fine products. And I might start there as a dual purpose of both restocking myself and saying, have you heard anything about these rumors? And then see where that conversation happens.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. Do a information move with presence.
+0 is a 10.
Very good. You got a clue. Let me take a look at that. I'll just give you the clue when we come back. Let's go to the last bit of Madame Morvaine's. The last stop for tonight on Madame Morvaine's is perhaps less happy than the others. Thomas, a rather plain young man who is clean and able. How do we know Thomas is doing this out of desperation?
We see Thomas slipping money into an envelope to send to someone with his surname elsewhere.
He's also remarkably thin for somebody in his line of work.
He has a few pictures, probably not framed, of family members, but they're turned down when he's doing his work.
Go to Mr. Turner first. Mr. Turner, you get to pose some questions to the coven, and they will leave afterwards. What are they?
What frightens you?
Let me take a look at my clue list. Give me a moment. Pick something good.
It's probably not just snakes. Probably a little more complex.
They say, what frightens us is of no import. What frightens the city of London, however, is of great importance to us. The signs are manifesting, brother. They are showing that we are getting closer and closer to completing our aim. For instance, and at this point, they will direct your attention down an alley where there is a confluence of dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of street cats. And they're all gathered and they're all perfectly still staring at the moon. And they look at you. They say, what frightens you? You don't have to answer, but you do get one more question. That's the clue, by the way. She'll type that for you later.
What frightens me is what has always frightened me, your lack of faith. Where do you dwell, creatures?
Where do you dwell? Good. Let me type this in real fast before I forget. Where do you dwell? Let me take a look at their clue list. They say, you will see where we dwell tonight when you sleep. You will dream of it, brother. And they then recede into the darkness. And indeed, when you go back to Hargrave House, you will sleep and you will have a dream. And the dream is dominated by the color green. Everything is green. That's your clue. A dream dominated by the color green. Willoughby, you're asking about about this butcher that you've been hearing tale of, connected possibly to Sally No Face. And
I like the idea in conversation that I might slip and ask about the butcher, but then misspeak the doctor occasionally when referring,
Oh.
trying to mix it back and forth.
yeah, that's pretty
But I
good.
get-
No, that's good. Yeah, let me find a clue here.
All of this is taking place in front of like a bar of snifters in which I am discerningly deciding of the
You have
nerves.
heard of rumors of a person going by the name the Butcher, or maybe someone by that sobriquet is connected to, in some way, a townhouse. A particular townhouse that is, I just missed it. In a very Tony neighborhood, we'll talk about that later, that's always well lit at night, but no one is ever seen coming or going. Mr. Gennadios, tell me about the curator's office. What does it look like?
It's a surprisingly large back room with a shelf, or one wall is predominantly shelves with miniaturizations of some prominent statues that he's probably using for studies or making duplicates of, and long work table in the center where there's a statue in the process of being restored. And the other walls mostly books and a lot of classical texts. And he is seated at his desk with kind of like the like watchmaker's glasses on with the different lenses, and he's peering at a marble chunk of a foot.
He sees you and he says, my lord, is it really you?
I've heard tell that there's no foolish questions, and yet.
He says, forgive me. I wasn't expecting a visit this time of night. And he's sort of like scrambling and stumbling. He says, what can I do for you? How can I serve you?
Calm yourself, man. I seek information. I will accept your repentance later. And he'll hold out the card.
I'll just give you this for free. He gives you an address, a warehouse by I think it's probably, we'll say, somewhere in Chelsea Harbor, a warehouse where they would store goods, and a time, which is, incidentally, the next night. He says, I know of this place. He tells you all this. And he says, we in the art world have been hearing rumors of this fabulous exhibit. Of course, it makes perfect sense that you would be aware of it. I suspect they shall hate to have you, though, because whatever they are planning will almost certainly pale in comparison to you.
Naturally. And yet I find myself intrigued.
Why, I hope I was able to be of help to you.
More than you know. You have my appreciation.
And he just sort of like collapses to the ground as you leave. And I think we'll just cut the scene there. Dawn phase. No threats were resolved, says no rewards are being collected, but we will go to dawn questions. Let's take a look at our Dawn questions here. Nobody's getting the first two because we have not answered a question or resolved the threat. However, we did get an echo in the night for Willoughby. I thought that was pretty great. Particularly the one about like going down on his knees. I thought that was pretty good. That was great. So you get to mark an experience there. Did you
I'm assuming
ensure
it's just one. Yeah,
it's just one? Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Did you ensure your employer got credit for your triumphs?
No, but I plan to give him all of the credit for this townhouse information I discovered, but that won't be until tomorrow, I suppose.
Did you have a scene showing your secret private life in London?
I
Oh,
feel
think
like
so.
I
Yeah.
did a little bit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get 2 XP in total for that. So you'll just mark your little track there. Great. Let's go to Mr. Gennadios. Did you experience an echo in the night?
The row of statues
Yes.
with the figures.
I picked that up. Yeah, that was good. Did you secretly show a vulnerable side to someone?
I tried in telling Willoughby that he was actually rather lost without.
Oh yeah, I like that. If Willoughby agrees, I think that's good. Did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane?
Going to visit the estate because it was the fanciest location to investigate.
That's a good point. Yeah. You brought that up too. Like that was yeah, it's good. All right, you get those XP. Let's go to the Mr. Turner. Did you experience an echo of the night, Mr. Turner? Yeah, you had a couple in there. You can mark your XP. And did you have a face-to-face encounter with a dark entity? The coven. So
Yeah. And the past.
Yeah, that's true too. And did you make love to a human in order to forget the darkness? Didn't do that. All right. So that is that done. Let's see. Do we have any playbook moves that resolve during the dawn phase? I don't think so. Could be wrong about that, but I think we do. And any unresolved Janus mask prompts? I don't think we have any of those either. So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and do a day phase. One last thing on the dawn phase is you can mark new elective dawn questions as well, or leave them the same if you wish. So, but the day phase, you already have 3 active threats, so no need to introduce a threat. You got plenty on your plate as it is. Regular scenes commence. Let me just go around the table. Mr. Gennadios, what are you interested in doing during the day phase?
I have a quick question. Did the woman's tongue falling out at the Rutland Gardens count as a clue, or
It was not a
that
clue. That was just
okay.
a hex by the coven. So,
We
the
have
clue was the tarot card. Yeah, let's take a look at our clues, make sure they're all kind of sorted right now. We've got that'll.
we have the green room too, or the green dream.
Oh, the Green Dream. Yeah, that was related to the coven, right? Yeah.
And then
Do you want to describe
blue room
narrate
under
the dream?
mastermind clues. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that was yeah, we already wrote that one down. Tell us about your dream, Mr. Turner. What happened in it? This green dream.
I think I was. Oh yeah, I think I was dreaming of angels as one is wont to do. Yeah, so I think so. First of all, my room is always black, and I keep paint close by all of the time because there's cracks of white that appear in it all the time. Or actually, no, it'd be completely white with black cracks creeping through. But in my dream, I'm painting, and instead of a black crack appearing, there's green, and it starts oozing and dripping. And as I move to wipe it away, the green sticks to my hand, and I swipe it across the wall. And everywhere I touch, I start leaving green. So there's green fingerprints around my room, and green overtakes me. And I probably run to my gilded door and leave a green print on it. And I stare at my hands and scream, and that's when I wake up.
Nice. So, Mr. Gennadios, what do you want to do today?
I feel like we should maybe pursue the Limehouse Lurker at least a little, but he wouldn't want to do that on his own. That's not his part of London.
Where you go, I go.
So it sounds like maybe Willoughby, at least Willoughby and Mr. Gennadios taking a trip to Limehouse. What about you, Mr. Turner?
I was hoping to get a scene with Willoughby with their vice Brandy, in which I try to clear a condition, but also get some information on the undeniable after what happened. Would be like, so what's up with that?
I like it.
And I
It's going to be
also
a very
especially
interesting
like,
breakfast, right?
yeah, day drinking's always good, and I
Mhm.
like that I'm plying you with your own vice.
Let's just have that scene then. The two of you in the breakfast nook or whatever of the, or maybe just, oh, well, let's go to the conservatory, having breakfast in the conservatory since we've already seen that. Roger the Reaver's turtle crawling around.
I set my glass upon the tortoise's back. I do it.
Mhm.
Let's just have that scene. Role play.
Would you like some? I found this wonderful Armagnac.
Anything to calm my nerves after the strange events of last night.
What's so strange? I mean, aside from everything that we do seems odd to me. Did something stand out in particular?
I
I'm
like
being very, very guarded.
I like shoot a look at the door that where like the wind drafts the canopy still.
Oh, yeah, that boy. I ran into him at the back of the house, like I told you, when we went to go see Miss Margaret. I like thought he was oddly dressed. I didn't think he would come back with bruisers, though. What do you think that was about?
Indeed, the boy has some stout protections. Perhaps he's wealthy, but the most curious thing to me is people bowing to our friend. I don't see you bowing to him. Do we have royalty in our midst? And I laugh like over exaggerated about it.
Sorry, couldn't stop myself. Of course. Well, to be honest, he is so very beautiful. I've always seen people just not literally bow to his whims, but often give him exactly what he wants. And as I serve him, I find that quite comforting and useful. But I had no idea. I just assumed it was because he was gorgeous.
Indeed.
And we think about how pretty he is for 2 or 3 sips of brandy.
If only we were in another time period where I could like tip your glass without being a dick while you're drinking.
My own liquor, rude. And then at that point, to be vulnerable, maybe that like second or third glass in, I might confess that I've always thought he has a deeper connection to this city in particular. And I have seen particularly the upper crust act very strangely around him.
And I think for my part, for being vulnerable, I tell you about the green dream. The only time I've ever screamed in fear.
The only time.
In fear was the thing that broke me there. And see.
That's good. Let's talk about
Mhm.
conditions. What conditions are being cleared, if any?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't have any, Willoughby. What about you?
No, I didn't need to.
For me, drawn to death, I think, because I think I don't think we've resolved the confused thing.
Okay.
I was obfuscated there.
And Willoughby, you get to either stumble on a clue or invite Mr. Turner to ask you a question about your past. Turnabout being fair play.
Yes, as we have been heavily day drinking, I think that makes perfect sense to me.
We'll come back to that.
Mhm.
Mr. Gennadius, what do you do what's your morning routine like?
I think it's more than a little luxurious. He'll lie in and wake slowly before bathing, taking a long time to get dressed, all the while music is playing on the gramophone, and he'll be holding a book in one hand, idly reading it, just passing the morning slowly. He's in
Willoughby would have already put a breakfast tray next to his bed that he almost never touches.
It's like you make this like beautiful breakfast every morning, but he never eats it, even though you still do it because that's what you do. Good. I like it. Give me just a moment, Mr. Gennadius, see if there's anything happening in the daytime here while you're kind of casually and slowly and leisurely getting ready. You see out the window, there's a bobby out front, police constable. You've recognized all the police constables that work this street, and you don't recognize this one. And he's kind of conspicuously hanging around, taking a look at Hargrave House from the outside. What do you do?
I think in my dressing gown, dressing robe at still this stage, he'll just open the window and lean out, rest his elbows on the sill and say, "Lovely day, isn't it?"
And he looks up and says, yes, sir, fantastic day. Are you the owner of this mansion, sir?
Perhaps I can help you anyway, officer.
Well, I was inquiring about a Ms. Jenny Johnston. I heard that she was here last night.
That name rings no bells.
Well, sorry to have troubled you. And he kind of goes back down, kind of realizing he's been kind of caught spying on the house. He sort of walks back down out the square. So, Mr. Turner and Willoughby, Fraser, Mr. Turner's been invited to ask a question about Willoughby's past.
Yeah. And this means like they're allowed to as well, right?
And they're allowed to say
Answer
it.
it?
Yeah, they're allowed to answer
Yes.
it. They don't have to answer completely, but you do have to answer truthfully. So.
What I'd like to know then is how or in what manner this partnership was solidified.
Between Mr. Gennadius and Willoughby.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
I take out the flask, the little cat admiral on it, and I pour us one last little dram. And I say, actually, this was his. And I met him when I stole it from him.
And are you thief still?
No, I find that the skills are useful. when we're investigating things, but your books and toys are safe.
Nice. So you're implying that you already know what's in my room. Oh yeah, on that note, Jason, does Willoughby get something from resolving the threat last time? Because we all
Oh,
got
I was
a thing.
just thinking of that. Yeah. I was, while you guys were talking, I was actually thinking of that. Yeah, I think that Willoughby should get credit for the resolution of the ghost threat, since Willoughby ultimately helped with that by gathering clues. So you can take that XP, Willoughby, which bumps you up, which gives you an advancement and incidentally. So that's good. Yeah, that occurred to me. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So why don't we go ahead to the heading down to Limehouse then, in that case. Who is all going to Limehouse? Sounds like Alexander and Willoughby are, but what about you, Mr. Turner? You can always go pursue something different, the Coven or Sally No Face as well, or anything.
Yeah. I like the idea of paying a cursory visit to the Limehouse, so we get her off our back.
At the very least, find a pig farm to help her with her bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have a you have several leads here. Actually, quite a lot of leads. Jenny's been giving you a lot of information. Two of the victims were found in the opium den. They were both prostitutes. There was a woman found behind the Limehouse School, which is a workhouse. And then there was a Chinese sailor found outside the Dog and Whistle pub. So those are your angles here.
Well, I still need to make love to a human to forget things, and opium den sounds perfect.
Fair enough. Yeah, so sounds like Mr. Turner at least is going to the opium den. What about Willoughby and Mr. Genadios?
Did you want to go to the Limehouse specifically, Alexander? Or are we?
The Limehouse is the neighborhood that all this stuff is
Oh,
in.
I see.
Yeah.
The school, I guess, is what I'm. Do we want to visit where the bodies were found? Do we want to pay face to Jenny and see if that helps alleviate any of it? Although I don't think she has any more information for us at the moment.
I think, yeah, at the very least, having Jenny know that we are investigating would be good, and we can ask about the police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like everybody's going to the opium den then. Jenny Johnston's place. Dim and smoky. A very heavy ammonia-like smell. That's what opium smells like. People lounging all over on cushions. It's a very dark, dimly lit kind of place. And everyone just kind of lounges on cushions and smokes from long pipes. Paint the scene question. People from all walks of life patronize Jenny Johnston's. What do you see that indicates this?
I like the idea that perhaps this space was an disused theater, or something at the structure of it has almost like boxes in the
Studio
upper.
54, right? Studio 54 was a theater, right?
Yeah. It's a little bit like that, where you could have private rooms upstairs that kind of overlook everything else, or in the communal space, Shakespearean theater style, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that. Mr. Genadios, how do we know that all walks of life patronize Jenny Johnston's?
I think amongst the more clearly immigrant and lower class people, we see Mr. Beale hanging out on a cushion.
Celebrating his newly exercised home. Very good. Mr. Turner?
I like the idea of everybody having to leave their shoes at the door. So we get like, filthy shoes from working class to this like wildly expensive boots and
Satin
things like
and
that.
ribbon and all that. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I love it. So Jenny Johnston comes up to you. She's dressed similarly as she was the other night, without her traveling cloak, obviously, but kind of a very like neatly corseted, like kind of red gown. And she says, Hargrave House. Thank you so much for coming and looking into this matter. You have the run of the place, whatever you need. And then she kind of looks over at one of the patrons who is laying on one of the cushions. And this patron is wearing a gold smoking jacket, yellow silk pants, and interestingly, a sun mask over his face. He says, some of my clientele don't like for people to know they're here. And maybe kind of indicating that that individual is maybe trying to hide their identity while they're here. But so long as you operate with a certain amount of discretion, you should be all right. And then she says, you don't partake, do you?
I'm looking for someone angelic, if you have it.
She says,
We both just look at Mr. Turner.
She says, this is not that kind of establishment, Mr. Turner. But I'm sure someone as charming as you will be able to find a sufficient manner in satisfying your desires. And she turns and goes back to this sort of like tall chair where she sits and kind of observes everything, keeps an eye on things. Mr. Gennadios, what do you do now that you're here?
I think walking around the people with the one handkerchief held at the nose, he will be looking for anyone with visible calves to see if there are any scars.
That's a good move. Do information move with reason.
Seven.
Back to that. Mr. Turner, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm looking for someone who might have overheard our conversation and has like a telltale that they sort of like may know something but are trying to hide that fact. Like maybe they pick up and leave when we started talking, or
I mean,
like
I think the most standout person is this man wearing a sun mask. I think the sun mask will like, even though the mask has no expression apart from just a sort of beatific smile, the sun mask is sort of, you can tell that they are looking at you with some interest, these new arrivals.
Then I ask for guidance and help in smoking the opium, because I have not done it before. And,
Of him?
yes.
Okay.
I need someone learned in this practice.
He says, well, there's really nothing to it. You just put the pipe up to your mouth and inhale.
Surely nobody does this alone, though.
Certainly not. Well, I do most days. But I'm very happy to have your company. Please make yourself comfortable.
And I'll sprawl.
You'll have to forgive my inconspicuous manner. I don't want people to know I'm here. I am a very highly placed member of the royal family.
Oh, I see. I could tell that you were important, but truly this eclipses that.
He says, "There's something about you, sir. I can tell that you have glimpsed other worlds, other stars."
You have no idea.
He says, "There is a world beyond this one, you know. It's like our own world. It is, in fact, our world, but impossibly ancient. It's a world where the sun is new, and where old spirits and old gods play and make war with each other. I have seen it with all my eyes. It is magnificent and terrible and bloody and every other awful, wonderful thing you can imagine. Does that stir something inside you, sir?"
How could it not?
Willoughby, what are you up to?
I would like to. Is there staff about? She's not running this establishment on her own. There must be
No,
somebody
she
bringing
has
cool towels
family
and water
members and
and
things.
no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
I think I would like to blend with that crowd under the guise of maybe going to some of the more darker corners or private rooms and knock and offer, "Oh, can I bring you anything?" And just to see who all might be there and
Yeah.
or exsanguinating anybody actively.
Yeah, fair enough. Is this something you're doing? Is this like a deceptive thing? Like you're pretending to be a member of the staff?
Yes, I am.
Roll information move with composure. Yeah.
The 5 + 2 is a 7.
It's not so bad.
That's not so bad.
You can always bump it up if you don't want to deal with any complications, of course.
I really don't. That little kid was a dick. Sorry.
If you want to mark one of your Janus masks, you can bump it to a 10 and get the clue free and clear.
I would like to do that. Mask of past or future does
Yep.
not
Doesn't matter.
matter?
Yeah. And we'll
Okay.
resolve it later. You can just mark it for now.
Sounds good.
I'll give you your clue now. I still owe one to Mr. Gennadios as well. Here's the thing you find. Weirdly enough, a Bible. A Bible that if you just find it like in a room, a little room that's empty. It's daytime, so the place is not as busy as you would think. And if you thumb through the Bible, you'll notice that all the pages telling the story of Noah and the ark have been ripped out. That's the clue. I shall type it for you.
I'm really glad it just wasn't one of those Bibles that has like a hole cut in it and it was just a stake,
Yeah.
or So any reference to Noah and the ark.
Yeah. The pages have been expressly torn out.
Is it a recent edition?
Well, I think
Does it
maybe
matter?
in this time is maybe there isn't such a conception of such a thing. It would be rare to have a Bible, period, I think.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gennadios, I owe
think
you
I
a
would also
clue.
like to bump up my success to
What did you got a 7 to 9 as well, huh? Yeah, you can just get it free and clear if you want. Remind me how you were looking. You were just like, how were you investigating?
looking for
Looking for bite marks. That's right. Yeah. You don't notice anything like that, but you do see in one corner of the room an odd thing indeed. Crude drawings of a Roman phalanx. Just scribbled on the wall. and perhaps maybe a few characters in Latin.
Well, he would know Latin.
That is true. It says something like, I don't know what the Latin would be, but it says something like, to conquer the world is my true aim. What do you do after that?
Is Jenny available?
Always, yeah.
I think he'd kind of walk up to her and point it out and say, "What can you tell me of that art?"
She says, oh, I can't tell you anything. It wasn't there before. That's new.
Before the killings.
Oh, hell, I can't remember the last time I looked in that exact spot, but it certainly wasn't here. Well, we do a deep clean every few months, and I don't remember seeing it the last time.
And it's just drawn in like chalk, or
I didn't think about the medium. Like charcoal.
I think then he would maybe start looking to see if anyone has charcoal stained fingertips.
Mr. Turner, this rather cryptic fellow with the sun mask, what's going on right here?
Yeah. Is he partaking much of the opium? Is he getting more pliant?
I think he's more interested in you doing it now.
Okay. I suppose that makes sense. I'll definitely try it. I don't think he's tried it before.
He says, you have peered into other worlds, haven't you, sir? No, he says, Mr. Turner. He knows your name.
I have.
Yes, I can tell. Your eyes, it's in the eyes. There is a certain milkiness of the eye flesh that indicates one has peered beyond the veil. You learn to recognize these things after a time.
Are you not worried that when I take this substance, my altered mind will see you for what you are?
No, I have no concern about that at all.
And why is that?
Mr. Turner, let's just say I come here to anchor myself, to ground myself. It's outside these walls I'm vulnerable.
And do the forces that you speak of assert themselves on people here that you know of?
Do the information move with presence? No, sensitivity.
$13.
That is a lot. You get a mastermind clue as well. He says, there is something here. Not at this moment. But in Limehouse, certainly. I have even sensed their presence in other parts of the city, though less frequently. The key is the number 3, Mr. Turner. Where there should be 3 things, there will be 2. For example, Ms. Johnston, on her bar, there used to be 3 small statues, porcelain statues of sailors, and one is currently missing. And if you look back, you'll see that one's missing, that there are only 2 there. There are 3 gas lamps outside this building. And some nights ago, one of them went out and has not been relit. It gives you a few more examples of things going missing, the 3rd element in a set of 3. That's your clue. I hope that wasn't too cryptic for you, Mr. Turner. I'm certain your mind can decode it.
I thank you.
Willoughby, what do you do after you find the Bible?
I would make my way through the entire back of the house. I would want to see if there were any corners, holes, dark spaces, under stairs, that sort of thing. I want to see the guts of it. And ideally, I accidentally stumble across the bodies in the basement.
You can have access to the bodies. Jenny will give them to you, give you access. Make an information move with reason for now to see if you see anything before that.
Nine.
You notice what appears to be in one corner in the back of the house, rather violently discarded pitcher of milk and sweets, cakes, bread, just shattered and thrown and smashed up against a corner. An unusual detail. And then a complication.
I see a boy in a yellow hat.
I owe mastermind include to someone, don't I? Where'd that mastermind include come from?
It was
Eyes.
me.
Okay, I'll come back to that. No, not a boy in a yellow hat. Something else. You get down to the basement where there are bodies. And there are 3 people already down there. They are wearing long, heavy black veils that cover their whole body from head to toe. And they turn and they outstretch their hands. This is in the day, but because you're in a subterranean place, in the presence of witches, this is a night move to avoid whatever they're about to do to you. What do you do to avoid what they're about to do to you?
I have a mechanical question that I need answered before I go any further.
Right.
Can I sense that perhaps my employer at this very moment would really like a cool towel and just use my Person Friday ability to
Be there, to be somewhere else. No, I think that's the inverse of
Okay.
what it's meant. It's meant to
I
like
understand.
rescue someone. Yeah.
I'm confronted
Yeah.
with witches in a basement. I have to ask all of those questions just in
By all
case.
means. Yeah. But they are presently muttering words and waving their
Mhm.
hands and getting ready to hex you.
Mhm. Could I use my person Friday ability to have an item that I would find
Yes,
useful?
absolutely. Yeah, you
in
can do
this-
that for sure.
Mhm.
And you can add it
Scary
to your personal
witches.
quarters.
Mhm. I don't get the sense that these are the Bible-fearing sort of witches, and I would just like to have a fairly large hand mirror.
Okay, interesting. To like reverse
Mhm.
whatever they're about to do.
Oh, there's a certain amount of like, if I look at them in the mirror, they might look different. I might be able to reflect what they're
Oh,
doing
yeah, I
to
like that.
me.
Let's do a night
Um,
move.
yeah.
Here, you should tell me what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve.
That this is just a stupid idea and it immediately fails. Like if I'm trying to reflect light to get like, but they're not sensitive to sunlight. Like I have no idea how to help myself against witches and I'm grasping at straws. And my fear is that all of this will be for nothing.
And it's worse than that. They will cast a hex that will destroy you.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I really loved playing this character, guys. Bye.
You can
all right.
back out of the
Night
basement
move.
or you can press forward. It's up to you.
Oh, if I break the mirror as I flee, do they get 7 years bad luck? I press forward.
Roll those dice. It's going to be sensitivity. But if you want to mark that mirror in your personal quarters, you'll get 3 dice and you'll take the 2 highest.
I will do exactly that. I have 11.
Very good. Success. They are going to hex you. And
Okay.
basically the mirror is going to reflect back the hex on them. You can't destroy them and you can't capture them or anything per the rules of the game. They'll escape. But just what does it look like when they do the magic and it reflects back?
The 3 of them and their gestures kind of coalescing forward, their hands clap together, and I can see the beam of their magic almost physically. And am I able to refract it in a way that hits one of them square in the nose?
Nice. And I think that like they give up like a shriek and a wail, and they just sort of like the back behind them, it's like particularly inky and black, and they just like slip into this like inky black void and are gone. What they were doing here, who knows? Maybe they were just keeping an eye on Hargrave House and wondering what Jenny Johnston was doing there, right? Maybe just as a, doing their due diligence. But in any case, they're gone now. We cut back over to Mr. Gennadios for now. Where'd we leave you?
I just seen the painting and I was looking around, but I realize I'm not playing to my character's strength there.
Okay, so what does that mean?
And I think he's going to just kind of clear his throat and stand in the center of the room and say, any who can give me information about this drawing, I shall allow to touch me.
I love it. It's a wild, bold move. Do information move with presence.
Nine.
I'm going to give you the clue, and the complication is going to be something that the man in the sun mask tells Mr. Turner. The clue a patron in the opium den approaches you and they say, didn't see who did it, but I was here when it was done. A heavy fog settled over everything. Outside the opium den, and even here inside. At first I thought it was the smoke, but it wasn't. It was colder, it was mistier, and it was very, very thick, and I could not see through it. And when it was done, that's when they found Soft Jimmy. His blood drained from his body. And here Jenny Johnston will like interrupt and say, we don't talk about that out loud. And she's pulling him away before he gets a chance to touch you. And he's trying to touch you. What do you do?
He'll just turn away, like, oh, it's not my problem.
But that's your clue. A heavy fog settled in to the opium den and around the opium den around the time of one of the attacks. Meanwhile, Mr. Turner, the man in the sun mask, he says, that man there, your friend that you came in with, the one who just loudly held forth, I know him. I've seen him, but not here. I've seen him in that other world I described to you earlier, the ancient world. He was there, walking amongst the old gods and the spirits. You should be careful of him.
Did any of the gods linger?
No, no, no. They are all long dead. Most of them, anyway. And then he says, there are many dangerous people in London right now. There's something in the air, I think, or something in the stars, perhaps. Something drawing them here. Something is awakening here. And here he will take your hand, and he will press into your hand he will press into your hand a glimmering blue gem. Not a real sapphire, but certainly the color of it. And he says, you will see this much more in the days to come. Something like it anyway. It should fill you with terror. Willoughby?
I would love to use this moment instead of, running up the stairs screaming witches, to just pop up behind sir and get Mr. Turner's attention to hopefully discuss what I found in the basement after this conversation is over.
Indeed. And I think we're going to just end there for today. Let's take a moment to do, so we can't end yet because we have to do Janus Mask prompts. We'll do that at the end if we don't have a phase to end on, if we're not in the dawn or dusk phase. So who has a prompt they need to narrate? whoever wants to go first, read the prompt and then narrate for us.
I will be doing a flashback to Alexander's childhood. It shows how even then people were willing to suffer in order to make him happy.
Very good.
And I think it's kind of a dusty street that we see with people walking around in togas and generally old garb. And Alexander has decided with his little group of friends, he's probably around 8, that he wants a piece of fruit. And several of his friends endeavor to try and get it by, selling what they have, what they can, but no one can scrounge up quite enough money until someone goes and steals this pomegranate from a cart, and she's caught, and for the crime her hand is lopped off, and she still comes back with her remaining hand and gives him the pomegranate.
It's dark. I love it. Willoughby, what's yours?
I must narrate a flashback to my young adulthood before I was a servant to my employer that shows my most significant professional triumph. And it would be just a smash scene to Willoughby climbing out of a 2nd-story window in a very nice district and kind of doing the creep along the molding, and a Santa sack full of what could only be imagined is every stitch of silver in the house.
Nice. I love it. It's good. Mr. Turner, did you have one?
No, I already did that one.
That's right. Okay. Great. In that case, let's go to stars and wishes. Stars are things you enjoyed about the session. Wishes are things you hope to see next time. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
I am going to ask to go first, as I have a haircut at 2:30. I'll dash to
Okay, go for it.
a little early. Wow, that was a lot of fun. I think the nature of the vulnerable moves and giving the characters an opportunity to have some really in-depth conversations is really not only an excellent mechanic, but a lot of fun to play. Jason, your Hannibal voice for that sun god royal man was just fantastic. All of this was really great, Clarice. Wishes. I hope that we can still continue going round after round of this. It's too much fun to play. So I would love to continue going forward. I think that also other wishes, as we see more of London with Alexander, I think that some of the vulnerable moves might I hope that they end up being a little bit, not only more revealing, but maybe seeing a little bit of your personality and how you fend off some of the inquiries into your peerlessness.
Indeed, indeed. Who wants to go next? Thank you. And if you have to run, you can run, Sarah. So.
Bye.
Yeah, I thought that was very fun. I had been thinking about how to do the engaging in my vice, and that worked out very well. I really liked the scene where I was trying to dig up the past of Alexander, and it didn't quite work, plying somebody with their own vice. It was very good. And I'm particularly fond of that unseen. That was one of the ones that I had done before, and I was waiting for it to come up. Oh, wishes. I want to try to remember to try to do that new move that we have next time. The
Old Bones, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
so
Old Bones.
so far only Dr. Tagore can do it because he's the only one who has Cosmic Passage marked. So
yeah, so maybe next time
yeah.
we could do it.
Drew?
Stars. I really loved the brewing rivalry between Ives and Alexander. That's fun. And I like that he's feeling a little less certain of his position in this little society they have. Also in general, just basically I think everything that Ives and Willoughby got up to both worked out really well, and it was fun to be an audience member for that. So stars there, and as usual, the voices. You really bring the characters and the mannerisms to life with those, and they're great. Wishes. I liked the more exciting pace of last time, but definitely good to kind of have that room to breathe and have more character moments. So I think I wish for more sessions of a more relaxed pace like this. And definitely looking forward to seeing, well, I'm looking forward to seeing where all the threats go, but the coven is so intriguing, and I'm looking forward to that one especially.
Yeah, the coven is wildly dangerous too. Like putting the coven in play makes the game like so much more dangerous. Because they can basically they can always remotely attack you with hexes. Yeah, stars for me. I had a great time. I thought it was really fun. I thought the pace of this session was a nice sort of palate cleanser from last week's, which was very fun, but like so intense, you know? So I think we did a good job on that. Loved the vulnerable move scenes. Those were really, really good. Liked learning more about all the characters via both those and the masks. So that was really enjoyable. And yeah, just, yeah, the just the overall like dark vibes, the sort of like, just like, seeing much more of Alexander's like kind of sort of like weird godliness is like very cool to see in the setting, how that like expresses itself. And the conversation between the Man of the Sun mask and Mr. Turner was fabulous. I loved that. And again, and like Willoughby, just, you know, Willoughby, as always, the factotum is always just like the one who gets things done, and like so we just get to see more of that as well, which is really great. It's just, I just like the dynamic here. For wishes, I'm excited to get Dr. Tagore back into it and to see what Dr. Tagore's been up to, and I hope you get to see Sally too. Sally is a very, very fun character to play, at least the way I play her, and so I'll be interested to see if Sally makes an appearance. So we'll see, but I'll be excited to see it if she does, or if they do. They're not necessarily gendered. Great.
Yeah. I'm also excited about the coven too, like the questions that you posed to me. I think it'll be interesting because I like the stakes that the coven have that are kind of like interesting as an antagonist, like they kind of have a right to it. And then our opposition to it is almost purely selfish, maintaining our like monstrousness.
Oh yeah, what I think is so great about that, the way you frame that, which is a star, by the way, for me, another star, is something that I like about this game I think does naturally, but also is, I also built it in certain places, like with the mastermind, where like the antagonists, like as players, we might actually be sympathetic to the bad guys a little bit, or we at least see their point of view, you know. But like the player characters don't, you know, and so you know, I think we'll see a lot more of that with Theodora, for example. Like, I think Theodora is kind of fundamentally likable, and she's written to be likable, and she's gonna do a terrible thing, but like she's, you know, maybe has good reasons for doing that terrible thing, right? In the year 2021, her reasons might seem really good, you know. So I like this sort of tension of like the way the players judge the characters and the way the characters judge the characters. So I think that's fun. But anyway, well, awesome. I'm gonna let you guys go, but thank you all so much. This was a fabulous session. Really had a good time. So
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
See you.
See you next week.